I'm going to call to order the Town of Chincoteague regular meeting for the month of November, or the month of February. Date myself. If we could all please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear kind and heavenly Father, Lord, we want to praise you and thank you for all that you do for us. Lord, just ask Brother Billy, if he's still doing good, Lord, he said he was, Lord. We thank you for being with him, Lord, and giving him the strength, Lord, and the courage to go through what he's been going through. Lord, please continue to be with him, Lord. Special prayer tonight, be with Sister Ellen, Lord. Give her the strength, the same courage, the same everything she needs to get through what she's going to be facing soon, Lord. And we know she's a strong young lady. And Lord, that just bless her, give her courage, and please place your healing hands and the physicians, Lord, that are working on, Lord, give them the knowledge and the ability to do what needs to be done. Lord, we thank you and praise you for everything you do for this town. Lord, we won't have enough time, Lord, to count the many blessings, Lord, the storms that have passed. And Lord, be with Mayor's brother, Lord, Brother Colton. Give him the strength and the courage. All the body people in our town, Lord, that are under the weather, Lord, that are going through troubled times, Lord, give them strength. Lord, be with our employees, Lord, our police department, all of our volunteer organizations, Lord. And Lord, please be with our military, Lord. Give them strength and let them know that you're there for them, Lord. And thank you for all that you do for us, Lord. And give us the knowledge and we pray tonight that we do make all the decisions the way that you would have us to make them. And please go with us and guide us and direct us. For we ask these things in Jesus' precious name. And for his sake, amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Good evening, everybody that's here and everybody on Facebook land. I'll entertain a motion that we allow Brother Billy to join the meeting virtually by a phone.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank y'all. Is there any public comment?
No, sir.
Moving on. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion.
Seconded.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All righty. I will entertain a motion that council convene a closed meeting pursuant with 2.2-3711A1 Code of Virginia to discuss and consider the appointment to fill a vacant council position.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll go in closed session. Okay, I hear it. Turn it down a little bit. In accordance with section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, I move that council certify that to the best of each council member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened, were heard, discussed, and considered. I need everybody to show me their right hands if they agree with this. And I'll take your word for it, Billy. Thank you.
It's up. It's up.
It's up. Alrighty, we're back into live session. Let me see here. All right, we need to consider the appointment of a new council member. I will open the floor up for nominations.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion to nominate Jay Savage to fill the vacant council position.
I hear the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of electing Jay to our open council seat, please say aye.
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 Unanimous. Thank you all very much. Mr. Savage will take his seat at the next appointed council meeting. Got that behind us. All righty, moving on. Staff reports.
Good evening. Right place here. Okay, on January 20th, Mr. Russ, Chief Fisher, and myself had a conference call with officials from Wild's Flight Facility, including the director, David Pierce. We discussed the upcoming launch. We discussed the technicians they for every launch. Brian had made suggestions, and we had spoken with NASA several months ago concerning the next launch and how they would conduct business during COVID. And it seems that they have taken, and their prime contractor have taken his recommendations, and that they don't allow people to travel to the country until they have a negative test. They have to quarantine for 14 days once they get here, and then they get another negative test before they're allowed to go to work over there. And all those protocols are in place, and they report that they are following those protocols with all the people they're importing, or technicians they're importing for this launch. We asked about when they will open the visitor center again, and they gave us their protocol for opening the visitor center, which I understand now through a subsequent email is changing because the new administration in the White House is sending down additional guidelines for working on site rather than from home, and nobody is quite sure yet what those guidelines are going to be. So the visitor center is closed until all that is straightened out. Genie Port Authority, as you know, VPA offers a grant every year through VPA, and we've taken advantage of that. The town of Chincoteague has taken advantage of that grant for the last several years and got some really good infrastructure from that grant. We got a floating pier at the harbor not too long ago, which seems to be loved by everyone that's associated with it. And this past grant, which was awarded in May, was for another floating pier down there, which added 20 slips to the harbor and the associated revenue that goes along with that. Harvey's going to explain that better when he goes into his report, but suffice it to say, we have another grant opportunity. Actually, Tuesday of next week, we will give the presentation. Vernon and I will give the presentation to the Port Authority's committee on this year's project. And if you remember correctly, we had talked about adding on to the fishing pier at Memorial Park as this year's project. I reread the guidelines and talked to some folks at VPA, and I feel that we would have a better opportunity to get that money if we stuck with what we've been doing at the harbor. So this year's project we've decided is to remove one of the wooden finger piers that are there now and the associated 21 slips there and put back another floating pier which will have 28 slips, and it will be the exact same length as the wooden pier that's there. Now, Vernon, and I'll jump in on Harvey's parade just a little bit here, but Vernon said as they were erecting this year's new floating pier, he hardly could get any work done for his phone ringing off the hook for people trying to rent the slips. So they're pretty popular. We don't think we'll have any problem with this new pier getting them rented. I even had an opportunity to tie up at one of them briefly this summer, and it's the bomb. There's nothing like it. So that we've decided will be this year's presentation. We'll give that a week from Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, and the official application is due by March 1st, and we should hear by May whether we get the money or not. This year's project's $168,000. In total, our 25% matching grant will be just over $40,000, which we'll put in the budget and we'll be discussing in the next few meetings. Financial report.
I got a question, Mike, just
Yes.
quickly. On that, those floating piers are the greatest things we've ever done, I think. The parking, are we gonna work a little bit on parking? Because parking is rough down there.
Parking is rough. I
Are we-
experienced it over 4th of July weekend. Yes, sir.
It's rough. I mean, we don't have to talk about it now, but is that gonna be put on the list somewhere, the harbor committee or something about making sure all the lots or spaces are available and all that good stuff?
Absolutely, and we do. We're just going to take, as you know, and you know the harbor well, we're going to take some rearranging here to create some additional parking, I should say.
Okay.
But yes, it absolutely can be done. We have the land mass. It's just a matter of getting proper permits and funding, and that should be accomplished as easy as we do anything else. So, any other questions on that or that? Okay, the financial report, we've looked at this before, and we know the anomalies are the CARES Act money we got in revenues, but that's a flow through. It came in, it went out to the tune of $500,000. That tends to inflate some of the numbers here, and we know what they are. If you look at, and I just want to put some of those in perspective, if you look at revenues for the general fund at the very top there, you'll notice the percentage of revenue as a percentage of the budget, which is the last column on the right. As of January 25th, when we prepared this chart, we're at 73%. Revenues of our collected revenues as part of our budget. Normally this time of year, we'd be in the mid to high 60s on that. If you correct that number for the CARES Act money that we got, you're going to come down to about 66%, which is just about in line where we should be this time of year. Last year, at the end of January, we were at 68%, that number. So 66% compares favorably with that. On the other side of the spectrum, if you look down at expenses for the same general fund, you will see that we are at 61%. Again, correcting that for the $500,000 we got that came in and went out in CARES Act money, and you take us down to 53% expenses, when last year this time we were at 57%. So we compare favorably with last year's numbers, and looking at the percentage, it's much easier to compare, but long story short, we're living within our means right now, which is what we set out to do given this special situation that we're in. So we've collected almost as much percentage-wise, and we're holding spending down as a matter of policy right now, trying to make sure we get through this year without any additional financial woes. And if you look at the general fund revenues are about 3/4 of the budget, so that's why I'm picking on that. But if you look at the other funds there, they compare about the same. We're living within our means right now. Moving on to meals and transient occupancy, you can see that meals continues to lag behind, as you would expect, because restaurants are, even the ones that are open, are only allowed to Once they distance, are only allowed to back 50%, so you would expect that number to be down. And transient occupancy is just about where it should be compared to last year, so. No surprises there, we're still back in the same boat we were. Building and zoning, Mark is adapting well to the job. We talk every day, and he reports that it's very busy, and he has no prior experience here, but he talks to Kenny a couple times a week usually to make sure that we are being consistent with what we're doing and how we're doing it, and he reports that the activity is still strong in the month of January. And that about does it for me. Any questions?
A couple,
Yes, ma'am.
please. Building and zoning. Do we have anything on the books here that if a contractor puts in an application, that we have 30 days to respond to that building permit application? Do we have anything like that? Or is it open-ended?
I cannot tell you that we have something on the books, but I can tell you that there is no way it should take 30 days unless we're waiting on information from another agency, which has been the case here lately. We've waited on some things from the health department.
Okay.
And I do know that because, as I said, Mark and I talk every day, and he has reported that we have waited on some issues from the health department to make some approvals. And until, as you know, until we get everything back, another situation would be land use. If we're waiting on a land, not to say that we are, but we have to wait on that until we get it back as well. So those things could hold us up. I do not ever see the town of Chincoteague taking 30 days to issue a permit if all the information's there. If it is, we'll make some corrections, but I can't see
I've
that.
not had anybody say, but I did have somebody ask me that question, if, if we were at a 30-day mark or anything like that.
I will check on that to see what it actually does say, but again, I would think that we would never approach that as long as we have the information.
Okay. The other thing I have is a comment. I was down at the harbor, looking at the new floating pier, walked out on it and everything, figured out where the boat was gonna go and all that stuff, but, really nice, really nice. To be able to look out over the harbor and see the ones that are floating as opposed to the ones that are stick-built, biggest change in the world. I mean, it makes the whole landscape look different. They're amazing. So I think we've done a good job there. I would love to see floating piers throughout the whole harbor there.
Well, we're gonna request another one this year, and I'm gonna jump in front of Harbor here a little bit and say that the mayor was down there one night when all the trucks arrived, with this stuff on the trucks. Within about a week, the thing was assembled and in the water and ready to go. And
66 hours.
66 hours.
Amazing.
I told you I'm gonna jump in front of it a little bit here.
In the middle of a dust storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks, I mean, it's fantastic.
But Public Works did a great job doing all that, putting it together. And I even went out on a limb today and preparing the presentation for the BPA next week, and emailed Patrick Hendrickson and asked him if he had any recent photos of the harbor. And he sent me one from January 10th without it, and one from January 25th with the new pier. Direct shots of the harbor, and told me you're perfectly welcome to use these in your presentation. So a shout out to Mr. Hendrickson, but great photos, and it really shows you how quickly it was done. And with that, if there's no other questions?
Yep, I got one more.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't know if this is the right place to ask, or ask Harvey, either one, but, so I've gotten a couple of phone calls concerning the, dump site over here. The lights.
I had a phone call Friday from a gentleman who lives down here, and I know where he lives.
They'll blind you.
I was coming from Gary Howard's back this way, and when I called him, he told me about the light, and I happened to be staring right at it as I
Yeah.
passed his house. So I told him I will contact County Public Works, Stewart Hall, tomorrow, and we'll see if Stewart can't either redirect that light or put a
Yep.
shade on it, one or the other.
Yeah, something.
But it's not only the people in the neighborhood, it's also blinding if you're coming south on Depot Road.
Well, that's it. That's what I was talking about, the driving. It'll blind you, driving, both of them.
Well, this gentleman lives right there in the neighborhood, and he
Yeah.
told me he and a few neighbors are finding it rough. So yes, we will ask the county to take care of that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. Chief?
Thank you all. I updated the report and put a copy on everybody's desk, so you had it. It was just a little bit off, not too bad from what we were, but we had almost a week whenever I had to get the information to town manager until our meeting tonight. Also on here, I attended via phone a committee meeting for the new systems for Accomack and Northampton County right now. Basically, what it is, it's a plan. They're in the planning stages, of course. I believe back in, I want to say 2018, they actually hired a firm to do the planning and, you know, see what all was needed and so forth. And basically what they had on that meeting was just the firm came and give a presentation to everybody on you know, what they thought was needed, you know, for both counties and so forth. So I'm going to be keeping up with that, you know, because we're going to be involved in it also. You know, once they change radios, you know, we'll change with them. So and fire company, EMS also. Captain Greenlee and Corporal Adams attended their DMV grant workshop. That happens twice a year. That's so we can get our selective enforcement grant money. They have a grant workshop to tell you how to write the grant, and then they turn around and have another workshop to tell you you got the grant. So this one was for filling out of the grant and stuff and so forth. We got our new signboard, our speed trailer. I don't know whether anybody's seen it right now. It's on Willow Street, just a little bit north of Scotts Lane. It's working great. We all received training on that last Wednesday. And so far, I'm going good with that. We've also been reviewing the town's emergency operations plan with Mr. Rush. And then finally, at Captain Greenlee, we got a notification that DCJS has some grant money. Basically, it's for cameras, body-worn cameras. Our cameras now, I believe, are about 7 years old, and we all know with electronics, when you get, you know, 5, 6, 7 years on them, they're kind of outdated. The grant, when I read it, was more to try to get more departments using the body cameras, but it specifically said in there, if you already had body cameras in your department, please put in, you know, if you'd like to upgrade or, you know, any other, you know, things like that. So we contacted WatchGuard, who is the maker of our cameras, and they do have an upgrade. The first one was $35,000, I believe. It was upgrading not only the cameras, but our whole system for the evidence, the camera evidence. So we called them back and we went, well, you know, because this is a 50-50 grant. They'll pay 50% and the town will pay 50. So we called WatchGuard back and they said, well, you know, we have a camera that is an upgrade to yours, you know, that will work on the system that we have now for all of our evidence. And it seems to be a lot nicer camera, a lot better pickup of the video and the voice also. Mounts easier on the officers, and this one, I believe, if I'm almost positive, he says waterproof compared to the ones we have now, which are just water resistant. So we're working on that. He got the grant in. I think that was due Friday, and he got it in early last week. So we'll just wait to hear from that and see if we can upgrade our cameras. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Robbie?
Yes.
On your signboard,
Yes.
I know it does radar,
Yes, ma'am.
but there's no way that that could take a picture of a person's license plate, is it?
Doesn't have a camera now.
Does not have a camera,
No.
so it can only do the speed.
Yes.
Does it count how many people go
Yes.
past it?
Yes.
And it has a time on it,
Yes.
and also the speed, but no camera?
Yes. It's very high tech compared to the
Oh, what
the
you
little
did
speed
have,
trailer that we
sure.
had. This one's very high.
There's no way that you could put a camera on it?
No, I don't want to say it's no way, Ms. Allen, but enforcement with any type of camera.
You have to see,
Yes. Yes.
just a thought.
A lot of you speed cameras in the cities and stuff, they're not, they're a civil thing. They're not any type of,
Right,
like having to go to court with them.
sure.
So, and that would, I don't even know that we could get anything like that, with that, if we did
Just
put a camera
just
on it.
curious on how sophisticated it really is.
Right, right. Well, other than the camera, it's very, very sophisticated.
you a
I mean,
lot
it'll
of
do
data.
traffic studies and, it'll count the cars.
At certain times of day, so
Oh, yes,
that would
all-
already
all
be
day.
done.
It's always monitoring traffic, both ways. It'll only give you your speed if you're approaching it, like if the signboard is facing. We've had it facing south on Willow right now, so it'll only get northbound traffic that it'll display.
Right.
However, it still gets the speed, logs it, of the southbound vehicles also, just doesn't display it on the board.
Neat.
So,
Okay,
very,
thank you.
very nice.
Is there any thoughts to have a schedule on how to move that around the island so we could get a look at where traffic is on the island?
Well, and that's what I was thinking about this summer. I really, with the other trailer, we basically, when somebody had a complaint, or if we've noticed, that the officers were, say, in the summertime, July, writing more tickets on Maddox Boulevard, we'd go set it up there.
Right.
If somebody downtown, when the merchants complain, that traffic's going, flying through there, we'd set it up downtown, It was more on a complaint
Right.
basis, or if we just noticed something ourselves. But that's what I was thinking also, with all these features on it now, I mean, we can do, traffic studies. I'm still in the process of trying to learn, how to do it all.
Pinpoint it, right.
Yeah, because I think I counted 26 or 27 different, studies that,
Very.
or analysis that it'll do and print out for you.
Right. I know the old one worked when we were discussing lowering the speed limit through town, Old Town. We put the old checker there, and it told us that nobody speeds through town. I
Right.
think we had like 2 or 3 cars going above the speed limit going through town.
Right.
Even, we didn't have to address it, and that saved us a bunch of
Fine.
headache.
Well, I was telling them just before you got here, I put that out on Willow Street Thursday, and I went and downloaded the data on it today. And Thursday night, I think we had the highest speed we had was 40, 41, something like that. Friday night, it went down in the 30s, and then Saturday and Sunday, it wasn't much over 30 at all. So it's working. I mean,
Yeah, people notice.
if you look at the graph on it, it's working. So that's what we
Good.
want.
That's what it was for.
Robbie, tell me again, how much is the camera package you're looking to replace?
This camera package is, if I'm not mistaken, I've got it in my office, and I should have brought it. I think it was right around 15.
I was gonna say in the mid-teens, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was either 13 to 15,000. So we're gonna-
That's total, or our
Yes.
part?
That's total.
Okay.
That's total. So we're gonna have to, of course, come up with half of that. So hopefully, we'll be able to squeeze them in. If we do get the grant, I'm sure that they're gonna, give the bulk of the money to departments that
Don't have
that
it.
don't have, camera programs in their department already, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anybody else?
Very good. Thank you,
all
Rob.
very much. Appreciate it.
All right, Harvey.
Well, y'all have all heard everything there to hear about the floating dock.
There you go. Right. You're done. Thank
In your package, you have my monthly report that I try to give you every council meeting. I want to take a few minutes of time and actually do have a little more information for you on the floating dock. That's the finished product. We'll start kind of at the end. and kind of want to show you the stages we went through, unloading, installing, assembly, so on and so forth. Go ahead, Mike. This, I think the first truck pulled in a little after 5, just as things were getting dark. Obviously, the whole project started with the offload, and this has kind of reminded me of getting an erector set on Christmas Eve. Believe it or not, every one of those sections are unique, but every one of them is labeled. Well, I say they're configured slightly different, but every one of them is labeled. You ever have the opportunity to look at them and say, you know, put slot B and do screw C and so on and so forth. So actually, Raven Marine is the producer of this. They do an excellent job of not only the quality of the docks, but the ease of fabrication. So we got everything unloaded. I think we all got home about 9 o'clock that night. Next day, we spent staging, laying out the various pieces in the order that they go configured in. A lot of prep work. All of these things, if you go down there and get a chance to look at it, have got a gusset in the corner of them to stabilize the piers. None of that comes on a pallet, so you gotta, again, kind of pick through and find what you need where you need it. Then the big launch, naturally. We did all this work over on the loading dock on the west side of the harbor. Short sail across the harbor. Again, we had this thing ordered. I don't know if you got a chance to get there and look, but we had pieces of this dock scattered across the entire harbor. Every vacant slip down there had a floating dock in it at one point in time. Next comes the final placement, driving a pile. And every one of those sections actually has to be bolted together. And believe me, it can be a challenge to line bolts up on a floating dock, especially if you get a little bit of wind, a little bit of wave. Finished project, depends on who you talk to, but they're either 20 or 22 additional slips. Rental on those slips is going to be $14,580 a year. That assumes 100% occupancy, which I don't foresee as a problem. The whole project was done with town forces except the driving of the pile. And I'd like to commend every one of them that was involved. Total cost of the town, $37,000. That $37,000 payback period is only 2.5 years. A lot of assumptions in there. I know there's no overhead calculated in there. There's no depreciation. There's no so on and so forth. But over a 10-year period, you're looking at 394% return on your investment. I wish I could get that kind of return on any of my investments. Obviously, all made possible by the Virginia Port Authority, which I'd like to publicly thank them. Any questions on the dock before we?
What's the life expectancy of those?
They're all aluminum. You know, I've heard probably 25 years minimum.
25?
Yeah, they'll last a long time.
So when it's, and I'm just asking this out of curiosity, when you put them together and then drive the pole, or is the pole there, then you lower them down on top of it?
No, you place them and drive the pole.
Okay.
See the
It's a ring.
Yeah, I know there's a ring there. That's why I was
Yeah,
wondering if you just placed it over top of it.
No, you take the pole.
I guess because you really wouldn't know where to do it.
Yeah, you bolt them first to make sure all the bolts line up, and then you drive that pole
Then you
down
drive
through
that
there.
piling down with that loop.
because if you don't, you know, it's not that precise.
Right.
You
So-
gotta mess if you try to do it the other way.
If we replace the other two piers, will we be able to reuse those pilings at any point? Or
And I doubt that.
We
They've been
probably
down there
could,
a
but
length of
it'd
time.
be, you know, the shape they're in,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
we'd
Okay.
be crazy not to invest in new ones.
Okay.
You wind up with more trouble.
We did try to talk the contractor into taking them in trade for demoing them. But,
That didn't work either.
no, he wasn't too interested.
And speaking of the contractor, Fisher Marine, Dean Fisher did this work, and he does a lot of work for the town. And again, I thank the Port Authority. I'd also like to thank Dean Fisher for all he does for the town.
I don't have a question, I just got a comment. If you look at that picture, it doesn't show it, even none of these pictures showed it. I was down there near about every day. It was cold, because there's nothing, if you look across that picture, now there is nothing to block that wind.
Nothing.
And every day they were down there working on it, it was blowing northwest about 10 or 15. And one day, when they were putting this thing together, it was blowing at least 30. And the sand,
Cut to
where they've cleaned out the Inlet View campground, that sand over there was blowing across the harbor. And at times, you couldn't see from one side to the other, it was so much sand. So they were getting sand blasted while they were working on it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If I could speak to that just for a minute, because you all may get some calls on that. Sand blowing off that site is an issue. We have talked to the construction supervisor down there for Blue Water, and they have agreed to do two things. They're gonna put a tarp up on, about 3 feet up on our fence to keep sand from blowing into the harbor, and they're also trying to get a water truck so they can keep it wet, and we won't have it blowing sand. And that's in the works. We've already addressed it, and we've had some complaints from the boat owners.
Yeah, I know the several boats on that west side, that sand gets all in their electronics and all in their gear. It's got to be a hassle for them.
Yeah, well, if you go down there today and look right there against our chain link fence, there's probably places with 2-foot sand dunes up there
I believe it.
on the inside.
Yeah, on the inside of it.
Our side of the fence.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But they are addressing it. They're,
That fence that separates the properties, is that ours or theirs?
But getting into the weeds a little bit, I think they have in their plans, they're gonna replace that whole fence at their expense. I thought.
Their current plans,
Something.
current drawings, and I actually talked with Bobby Carter back this the
Yeah.
other day, they're just gonna put a chain or a split rail fence
Oh,
down
okay.
the side of
I thought they were gonna try to put something up that was more
Well,
aesthetically
yeah.
pleasing, but,
which means we'll probably wind up leaving our fence there.
yeah,
If
that's fine.
all they got.
Our fence is fine, it works.
All right,
All
one
right.
other thing, Mike, if you want to, I wanted to bring you up on speed real quick. I've been fighting this since June of last year, but we're in the final throes of renewing our groundwater withdrawal permit with DEQ. It's a 15-year permit. Kind of hard to forecast what we can do in 15 years from now, and a lot of times DEQ, what they try to do is base your withdrawal on historical. This graph shows you that over, since 2011, for the most part, we have been steadily declining in the amount of withdrawal. Really took a big step when we put these wireless water meters in, but it's, the town has a water conservation management plan that I've submitted to DEQ, and I'd like to think this reflects a lot of the stuff we've done in the way of water conservation. But again, 15 years out, got a lot of new projects coming to the island. We've got 2 in the construction right now. Inlet U is talking about using 7.5 million gallons a year just there. So what I've requested from DEQ is to keep us at our level amount, which is the 219 million gallons a year. I think they'll probably grant that request, but we don't know for sure. The permit actually expired, like I said, the 31st of March. But I will keep you posted on that situation. Any other questions?
Oh, there is no public works meeting
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, council.
I just want, notice in your report, any idea when, I know you've had a lot going on, but any idea when you might start some ditch maintenance.
I've been fighting the bucket for about 3 weeks now, trying to get a hydraulic coupling. Just as soon as I could get that, which I anticipate will be in the next week or so, we'll be out doing ditch maintenance.
Awesome, thank you.
That's the only holdup right now.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thank you for John.
This is us.
All right, good evening. In your report, you'll see that when that went in last week, I did some updates to the numbers to reflect the whole month of January. And the total calls in January totaled to 51. And if you see there, that's 36 less than January in 2020. So that's like, whoa, what's going on here? There's an anomaly. So we're a very data-driven department to use data to do things that we do, from staffing to training and so forth. So I started doing some digging today, and I had some staff members as well get in today, and we started running some reports to try to find, what's different January 2020 than January 2021. And what we found, last January, there were way more respiratory distress calls than what we had this January. So, a lot of people said, oh, I think COVID was here in January. I can't tell you COVID was here in January, but I can tell you the number of folks here locally that had respiratory issues of varying degree was certainly higher last January than it was this January. So then we were like, well, wait a minute, COVID. All we hear is COVID is respiratory driven. So we go looking at COVID numbers. Now, the ICD-10 codes changed middle of the year, 3/4 of the year through, and these are codes that go in, your doctor's office submits them, we submit them, and so forth. And of course, COVID came into that. And what we were finding in some of the COVID, the providers, instead of just marking strictly COVID, because some of the patients that we had, we didn't know they had COVID until after the hospital called back and go, hey, guess what, your patient had COVID. But we were seeing back pain, abdominal pain, leg pain, all had patients that ended up having COVID. So whether it was incidental that they were found out that they had COVID or some strange symptom because of COVID. So again, that still didn't explain, those 36 less calls. So we got looking some more. Matter of fact, I called Ms. Shotwell's office this afternoon and had a little discussion there on, hey, what did the number of tourists look like over the year? Of course, they're not open on Saturdays, so folks weren't, coming in there like they traditionally would if they were here on vacation on Saturday. So, but overall, they said they had a lot less, foot traffic than what they normally would. Of course, we don't have all the transient occupancy numbers to reflect all of that yet. So it would be interesting to see next month, one, what did our transient occupancy numbers look like for the whole month of January? And, was it due to the fact that this year we had less people than we had last year? I can't answer that question for you tonight, but I can tell you there's an anomaly here. I don't know what it is, but I certainly want to keep an eye on it because, again, those numbers certainly drive what we do as a department. We're, again, data-driven department. So we'll keep an eye. We'll see what happens next month. The first part of January was super busy, and then middle to the last couple weeks of the month, it just fell right off, which is almost consistent with how COVID reacted during January. First part of the month, it was real high. If you look at the graphs, and it began coming down. I don't know if there's a correlation. I can't answer that, but I did want to point that out because certainly, when I saw it, it made me question. Next, please. Before I get going on that, I don't know why they did that. Just a couple other things in the report that I want to touch on real quick. We did hire the 4 additional part-timers according to our plan that we discussed over the last couple months. 2 of them have been through their orientation process. 1 more will be orienting beginning next week, and then the last one towards the end of the month. So we are on schedule, on our timeline, as I put before you, to get moving with that. Thankfully, we didn't have the number of calls in January that we were leading up to. So again, we only had mutual aid come to help us out 1 time in the entire month of January. So that's pretty good. That's the best we've had in the last while.
We also, on the emergency management side, it's very busy right now, different things that we're doing. The hazard mitigation plan is up for review this year, and then the final plan will come out for adoption next year. The EOP is up for review and adoption this year. We had our kickoff meeting on the 21st of January with the department heads, and we went through 45 pages of that. We've incorporated some changes with the public health emergency and pandemic into that, and certainly that's a lot of driving force behind some of the EOP stuff this year, as well as some of the other changes that we have from our lessons learned. And with that, we're going to continue to meet every few weeks till we get through it. And once we have our EOP in a decent draft stage, we are going to have a pandemic annex that will go into that with a lot of notes that have come from you all in the different meetings we've had, things you'd like to see done differently. And then you'll get a chance to look at it, digest it, send us back some comments, tell us what we could do better with that, and we will update that EOP. Certainly, if you have anything that's on the burning forefront right now, by all means, please, send me an email, let Mr. Talbert know, whatever you would like to do. But we do want to incorporate everything in because, again, we will live off of this EOP for the next 4 years. So we want it to be very robust and meet our needs.
Excuse me, but don't we approve the EOP?
Yes, you do.
Right.
Yes,
So we
you
have the
will.
final
You
vote.
have the final vote to adopt it. Yes, sir, you do. So certainly, again, we want you to have a good working document there. And then that EOP adoption, our timeline would like to be the first part of June to get that adopted. So certainly,
When will we have a chance to actually review it and offer suggestions?
right now on the timeline that we're working on, I'd like to think the first to the middle of March is what my goal is right now. Certainly, if we could speed it up, but I really don't think we'll get any faster than that. But that would be my goal. Okay. So moving on, right here you see before you, I don't know why we got 2 tide gauges, but we did. If you notice your report I sent you this morning was showing tidal anomaly tomorrow morning of 4.9 feet. There is the potential, and you saw this morning, of some minor coastal flooding tomorrow morning, but this afternoon they have lessened that down now to 4.7 feet. I have an idea that might get even a little lower come tomorrow, but still going to have a little nuisance flooding tomorrow. If you notice, there are tides for the Harbor Refuge again tonight at 10:56, and then tomorrow morning at 11:20. So the Causeway tidal area about 45 minutes later than that. If you notice the monthly tidal height there, 2.7 feet. So it looks to be about 2 foot above normal if the gauge would realize at 4.7 feet. So again, nuisance flooding that we see. So again, don't be surprised if you see it. But like I said in your report today, with our wind direction the way it is, probably won't get quite that high. So next slide, please. All right, so our state of emergency still continues. All of the health metrics that I show you are as of 10 a.m. this morning. And we've had quite a few changes over the last week. So again, over 5 million folks have been tested in the Commonwealth. 507,640 of those have been positive, which is an increase of just over 29,000 from last week. Hospitalizations up 680 in the last week, and deaths are up 393. Doesn't show you a good comparison, but if you go back and look at the previous week's reports, these numbers are getting smaller, which is the direction we want to go in. And today's positivity rate is 11.7%. So we certainly are trending down just since last week. That's down almost 1%. Since the 11th of January, we were at 16.7, so we fell 5% in that period for that 7-day moving average. So we are moving in the right direction. Eastern Shore, Accomack County, with an increased caseload of 93 over the last week. 11 additional hospitalizations, which is kind of high. We haven't seen a lot of hospitalizations in that number. We've seen them consistent, but not, in a 1-week period. So that's kind of concerning. No new deaths, so that's really good. Northampton County, 34 additional cases, only 3 additional hospitalizations, and no new deaths in Northampton County. For Chincoteague, since last Monday, we're up 9 cases, up to 135. and there's been 1,585 tested, which is an additional 51 since last week. So, you know, at our high, we were running close to 18% positivity rate on the island. We came down a little bit. The last week we went up just slightly, but overall, we're moving in the right direction from where we were at the beginning of the month. And again, we, you know, anticipated that spike. It got a little touch and go there for a while, but we're starting to ease off of that at this point. So what now? So phase 1A second doses have been administered to all of our folks. And we, you know, people are wondering, you know, what's happened and so forth. Some people, most people report sore arms in their first and second doses. But I've had some folks that said they had a fever for 6-8 hours. I've had a couple folks that have reported that they were, had a general illness, malaise about them for 12 to 24 hours. One individual actually had some nausea. But everything resolved, nothing that was of permanent nature or was, you know, of severe nature. And thankfully, no one lost work over it. So all of our planning and so forth has worked there. We're moving still in that continuation of phase 1B. Some of the reporting last week, of course, as you know, the vaccines have kind of hit a wall as far as the delivery process, getting them out. Some of that too, because of some of the changes the governor has made. Phase 1B now covers just about 50% of the population of the whole Commonwealth. So that's a lot of people that are now eligible for vaccinations. So our second doses for our 1B providers here, we've had some 1B providers that have finally gotten in, some just as recently as this past Saturday, and gotten their vaccination. So those that got them early on can start receiving vaccinations as early as the 12th of February on their second dose. So we are getting our employees vaccinated, but again, it's moving a little slower than what I should say a lot slower than what 1A moved. It's unfortunate, but it is. But there are things in the works to try to continue to move this up. Now, Virginia improved to 14th today, according to the health department. So I guess the numbers could be a little skewed. But last week we were 50th in all the states of getting vaccination out. So I guess we had nothing better to do but improve. But again, they reported 14th today out of 50. So I have no way to verify those numbers, but again, they do say that they are improving. They also pointed out that the vaccine will protect against the variants that we're starting to see out here, the different variants in the virus as they begin to mutate a little bit. So they did say it will protect today. Now, not to what degree or what level, but that's what it is. And then patience is, you know, I know there's a lot of folks out here that really want to get the vaccination, and they're going to get it. I can't tell them when, but you know, they're going to get it at some point, and hopefully 1B picks up the pace that we were seeing in 1A as we started out there. If we
Be
can
careful
get,
on patience.
what's that?
You got to be careful on patience. Be careful what you ask for.
That's right.
You might get more than what you want.
You might get way more. So anyway, we are moving forward. You know, the big thing is that we are seeing our COVID numbers beginning to decrease, which is good. Although we probably will see some more increases in the next month or two from the variants, because some of the variants in the different viruses that are coming along in the mutation are a lot more contagious, but they're not any more deadlier or make people any more sick. So again, don't get too concerned if you start to see numbers increasing, you know, again, because I do think we'll see a slight increase. Next slide, please. So in summary, we're still response and recovery, moving forward. Positivity rate has decreased over the last month, and it continues to decrease. Not as fast as we'd like to see it, but it's decreasing, so we'll take it. Again, that potential increase for new cases in the next few weeks. The local PPE supplies, we're back to a good stable level now. We got another small shipment in last week, so we're looking better on that front. Again, 1B is rolling out slowly, but it is rolling out. And the public still remains the key. Stay out of group settings as much as possible. 3 W's, wash your hands, wear your mask, and watch your distance. Don't go out when you're sick. Try to stay away from people. And then get vaccinated when it's available. Once we get everybody vaccinated, then, you know, hopefully we can continue to move forward and get out of this pandemic. But again, it's a slow process, and we will eventually get there. Any questions?
Thank you.
I do have a question about the Antares launch.
Okay.
Have they given you any projection as far as what they're thinking people are gonna come down and see it?
So they did not on that call give us a projection. What they did tell us, as Mr. Talbert told you, they're not going to open the visitor center. So what we've deducted amongst our initial planning is, it's a Saturday, the 20th of
They'll be
February.
here.
It's at 12:36 in the afternoon. So we think this is going to be busier than anyone that we've had during this COVID period. So we're going to have to put some extra planning measures in place to deal with the extra number of space tourists, as we'll call them.
Which is a holiday weekend.
No, that's the weekend after the
Okay.
holiday weekend. But
15th.
yeah, thankfully, but still, that being on a Saturday, middle of the day,
Right.
it certainly should bring about some
Yeah.
visitors.
So
They'll be here.
has there been any talk about, well, I know the refuge will be closed, but will it be closed all day, closed until after the launch?
So we don't know yet, based on their previous, the previous launch, they were only closing a few hours ahead of time because of the visitor numbers over there.
Mhm.
Hopefully they'll do that again, but I don't have that answer for you tonight.
Okay, well, and the only other concern is that along the causeway.
So the state police will be
Yeah.
doing the causeway again,
Okay,
as
good.
they have in the past. So they've done really well about the last 2 to 3 launches of maintaining that.
Yeah, okay,
Brian, I have a question if Mr. Mayor's through.
sure.
I was looking in your report here. Fire company was turned down for the RSAF
Yes, they were.
grant
So
cycle.
the grant cycle went in September, and the award would have been the first of the month. And unfortunately, for the first time in a while, they were declined the grant. So that grant will be redone and submitted in the next cycle, which starts in March, with an award date somewhere around the first part of July.
What's the cost now for a new bus?
So a new ambulance, the quote that came in was $259,000, was the price of the ambulance. And an 80%, 80/20 grant is what was applied for, which would have left the fire company with a 20% liability there. But they were turned down, and a couple of reasons. One, our ambulance are thankfully in pretty good shape. Our maintenance program and so forth that you use works very well. And there were a lot of other folks that really needed an ambulance. So I'm not surprised that it happened this way. Certainly, there's no liability to the public. You know, there's nothing unsafe. Certainly, if we get turned down again and don't get it until next year's cycle, we'll be okay. But typically, it's a 6-year replacement
Right,
cycle. So
right.
we'll be behind 6.5, 6.5 years, somewhere like that.
And probably by that time, it could be like $279.
It could, certainly. That's how the game works, unfortunately. But yeah, it's you're looking at right around $260,000.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. All right, next on the agenda is Ms. Evelyn Shotwell from the Chamber, who will give us an update on their year to date.
On our year.
Yeah.
Oh, what a year. Thank you, Mayor and Council for having me tonight. As usual, I'm here in February to go over the year in summary, year in review, what the Chamber's been up to for the past year. And as we've all said, it has been a year. Our mission statement, next slide, Mike. Just to reiterate that again for you all, the Chamber is an organization where many different business interests join together in a combined manner to maximize their ability to attract and increase the number of visitors to Chincoteague Island. So that's always been the Chamber's goal, is to bring visitors here, and it continues to do so, to bring people here to vacation, and a lot of them end up living here, as we all know. I think real estate's hopping still. This is a little regional overview from the Virginia Tourism Corporation. These are their numbers. pulled straight from a report that I get from them. This is not, 2019 over 18. 2020 numbers won't be released until about September, so next year's numbers will be very interesting, to say the least. But the Eastern Shore of Virginia saw a growth rate of 5.6%. The whole Commonwealth of Virginia as a whole grew 3.4%. So a huge growth on the Eastern Shore, really with no new lodging. I don't think there were any new lodging facilities built that year. So it was that would contribute to increased numbers of people staying here for, having more places to stay. So that was not a factor. But the numbers that you see below there are look at 2015 through 2019 and the travel economic impacts on Accomack County. These numbers, again, pulled straight from VTC's website. I generated the report for Accomack County. It showed that $222 million was spent in 2019 on domestic travel here in Accomack County, which was also a 5.6% increase for 19 for that time period. $6.5 million in local tax receipts, $10.5 million in state tax receipts, over 2,200 jobs, and $47 million in payroll were supported in 2019. Those numbers were for 2019, but that looked at the increases there were for the period of 15 through 19. So that does show you the tremendous amount of growth in tourism spending in Accomack County, in the state of Virginia and in Accomack County. As you know, Chincoteague is a huge part of that growth, so we're very proud of that. Next slide. We developed a strategic action plan back in 2018, and you've seen the slide before. The plan was developed against the backdrops of marketing, business development, business retention, and member services. And those are some of the things under each of those categories that we are working on. And believe it or not, we actually were able to fulfill some things in our strategic plan last year, even in the crazy year that we had. The next slide shows some of the targets that we hit. Mike, thank you. Some of the plans, the goals that we actually attained in 2020 for the strategic marketing plan. We received a marketing leverage grant from VTC to assist in our travel guide production, which is hopefully being uploaded to Watkins Litho in Kansas City, Missouri as we speak. So the 2021 travel guide is in production, or will be shortly. We received a Wanderlove grant, marketing grant from VTC. There's another slide that will show you a little bit more about that marketing grant and what we've been doing with that, which we have gotten some very good earned media from, the press releases and the itineraries that we have produced for that. We have received some very good return on that with some media outlets that we have not had to pay extra for. So that's been a very good plus. We sent out over 27 press releases to over 400, to about 400 regional and national media outlets throughout the year. We actually assisted in 3 bus tours. Those were early in the year before everything came to a halt. And our social media engagement growth was not as good in 2020 because we didn't have Pony Swim in there. Pony Swim is huge social media generator reach, as Denise knows. We post the videos. They're so kind to let the chamber go to be out on the dock and get on a boat when they can, and we get video and we get pictures, and we send those out to media outlets and through our Facebook and YouTube and other social media outlets, and we reach millions of people each year with those videos and pictures that we take. This year, 2020, of course, without having that, we played some old videos and showed old pictures And the online auction, and promoted all of that. But the social media numbers reflected that it really wasn't a live event, and we were not there. So sadly, that is reflected in those numbers a little bit. But, you know, it is what it is. Business development, that was a part of our marketing plan that we actually, you know, our goal is to attract new businesses. We have an entrepreneurial webpage on our website that we developed back in 2018. We've been working on that, developing that a little bit more. We developed an economic development page, a business resources page, and I'll talk more about those in just a minute. And then we have a gaps analysis or a gaps assessment page on our website that we actually have job offerings or possibilities listed. You know, when people say, I want to start a business here, we'll say, well, these are things we need. And we have a little list going there of, you know, business opportunities that people can consider if they really want to start a business here, get their wheels turning. We did receive an EDA grant from the EDA that was COVID specific, that we are still working on, that will go through 2022. And we will be providing some seminars and workshops on business resiliency. Brian will be helping us with that. And actually, which is something that we had started back in 2019, before all of this, and now we will have to rewrite the book on that and start over with new chapters. So, but he's helping us with that, and those will hopefully start again in March. Brian will also be talking to our annual, speaking at our annual general membership meeting on February 25th, along with Matt Clay from Eastern Shore Rural Health and Sally Schreiber from Riverside Memorial Hospital, on COVID and vaccines and so forth and so on. So we'll be sending out letters and press releases about that this week. We had, and then our member services, we had 37 new members from July 1st of 2019 through the end of last year. So those, we did nurture some new business members there, and continued on with some of our goals in our strategic plan, regardless of the difficulty of the year. Next slide. On March 13th, when things sort of turned upside down here for us, the chamber began regular email correspondence to our members, updating them on local, state, federal, and CDC recommendations, restrictions, and guidelines, and that is ongoing. We have not stopped doing that. We're still continuing with that. We began a social media and press release campaigns for the same messaging, which is still ongoing. We developed the resources pages on our website for rapid release of information to residents and visitors. That's ongoing. And then those are those websites in the pink or red box up there at the top. In marketing, we did a couple of real neat little campaigns to let the public know that our businesses were open when things were opened back up. And as they opened back up, the first thing that we did was develop a web page that we listed all the businesses that were open. And we directed people to that page so they could find out, you know, not telling them what was closed, but telling them what was open. You know, go to these businesses and support them. They would be happy to help you in any way that they could. We mirrored VTC's marketing campaign with a couple of videos that we produced. Chamber President Benji Holloway helped us put it together. We'll be waiting for you and we're open, where our members actually sent in little clips that said, you know, we'll be waiting for you, and then later on we're open. Those were really cool. The members enjoyed doing those, so those were fun. And then under recovery, we you know, came up with a marketing plan called Path Forward that we presented to our membership to let them know what we were doing, and that we were doing everything that we could to keep them abreast of the changing world around them, and trying to get them ready to look at what was next for them and be ready for that. I attended mostly weekly Zoom meetings and conference calls with VTC, the Virginia Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, U.S. Travel, Virginia Chamber, so forth, other local, state, and federal agencies to get as much information as I could during those times so I could share it with the membership. We reached out to state and to state and federal legislators to be a voice for the Eastern Shore and Chincoteague for any recovery dollars that could come our way. We bid on and we were awarded the EDA grant that I've already talked about, which this was much of this work was a part of, to help with continuing to help our businesses recover from COVID and find ways to help their businesses grow. And as I said, that will continue on into 22. And the Wanderlove grant and the Marketing Leverage grant that we received from VTC are marketing specific for the travel guide and then the Wanderlove program. The next slide shows actually our email, website, and social media reach. For the yellow box is all of the reach for each one, for email, website, and social media. And then the dark blue box indicates the reach that was specific for any COVID messaging that we put out, whether it be an email, website hits, or social media reach. The dark blue indicated how many people we reached based on for those messages. So over 71,000 people reached by email. Over 48,000 web impressions to our COVID pages, and then 999,000 social media reach for our COVID messages through Facebook. So that sort of gives you an idea of the information that we put out for that we relayed to the public about COVID, and the people that were paying attention to it and read it. The next slide shows a little bit, talks a little bit about our earned media. These are magazines that wrote about us. These are people that we helped in the office maybe with pictures or content for stories. This is media that we did not have to pay for. So it could have been from a press release that I sent out. It could have been from, who knows, somebody just saw us somewhere. They called the office to find out more. They're writing a story about us. It could be something that, a pitch that I sent to them, or it could be that they found us any number of ways. I was on Delmarva Life back in the fall talking about Fall in Love with Chincoteague. That was a press release that we sent out. So there are, I won't read all of those obviously, but they're there for you to look at and see some of the things some of the media outlets that we were in as a result of direct efforts from the Chamber and indirect efforts that just sometimes they just happen. We were awarded the Best Coastal Small Town by USA Today in 2020. That was an accolade that we received even in the midst of this, so we were very proud of that. The next slide shows a sampling of some of the paid media that ads that were placed. Now some of these ads were placed the winter before, say November or December of 19, but they were for 2020 editions of these particular publications. The Southern Travel and Lifestyles, Travel South, Adventure Outdoors, the Sandmarks publication, which goes into hotel rooms up in Ocean City in Delaware, and then they also do a book. It's like a coffee table book. It's in the hotel, it's in each hotel room. And then Coastal Virginia, which is down in Hampton Roads. These are for day trippers. I do the ad in those books they're specifically targeted to people who are already in Ocean City and Hampton Roads, obviously, because they're in a hotel room there. But if they see Chincoteague, it's to try to either get them to come up here and spend the day, or to get them to come visit us on another trip. So that's the target audience for those. and then the Virginia Travel Guide. And these are just samples of some of those ads that were placed, and how much they cost, and actually how much we paid, and what the value of them was. You can see the actual the savings there that we get because we work with these magazines and different companies. All right, next slide. This slide shows a little bit of a compilation of, I thought it would be fun to look back over the last several years. So start back to 2003. This shows our total reach of phone calls, office visits, emails received, and web hits. This is not social media. So these are people that we touched by phone, in the office, through an email, or on the website. So this is not Facebook, this is not Instagram or YouTube or Twitter. So instead of breaking it out each one individually, we sort of did it all together, because when phone calls, back when I started in 2003, we had many more phone calls, but we didn't have as many web hits because people weren't on the internet as much as they are now. Now we don't get quite as many phone calls, but our web hits are much higher. So when you have a decrease in one, you have an increase in the other. So we added them all together and to just show you the increase. Now, if you'll notice in 18 to 19 there is quite a bit of an increase that happened. That's about the time that we started doing more digital marketing. We started doing more Google and Facebook ads. And in 2020, last year in March, we stopped all of that, so because we couldn't afford to do that. So I'm hoping now that we can resume some of that little by little, and we'll see those numbers go back up as we get past this pandemic. Next slide. And of course, you all know that we were not able to have our events last year as we normally have them, the Easter Decoy Show, the Seafood Festival, or the Oyster Festival. So not only are those huge fundraisers for the Chamber, but they're good for the community. They fill the hotel rooms, and people just love them. They love the events. They come every year. They miss them when we don't have them. So when we couldn't have when we knew we could not have the Oyster Festival, one of our attendees emailed and said, we're coming anyway, and a lot of other people are probably coming anyway, and we're staying in a campground, and we're going to get oysters and cook them. Why don't you sell oysters and people can buy them and cook their own? And so I took it to the board, and they thought it was a good idea too. So we had a little DIY drive-through oyster festival and had a lot of fun with it, and people enjoyed it. They loved it. And for what it was very successful. So we had a lot of fun with that. So you may see some more of those in 2021. We don't know. But anyway, then at Christmas time, of course, we couldn't have the parade. We thought about it, talked all around it, but we decided for everyone's safety, it was best not to. So we had a business decorating contest, and just a fun thing, send in pictures, and it generated a lot of social media reach, as did the DIY Oyster Festival. You can see the 70,000 plus social media reach there for that. So those were all people that were, thinking about Chincoteague, talking about Chincoteague. A lot of them were here because I think, our hotels were full. They still came, and they had a good time. So we are definitely looking at some more of those kinds of alternative events this year. The next slide shows a little bit about the Wanderlove program, the Wanderlove grant. I've talked about it in several slides now, but this is actually what the grant was. It's a hub and spoke. The hub is discover the love of Chincoteague Island, your love of Chincoteague Island. And then we have 6 spokes around it, and those are oysters or coastal cuisine, small town charm, Misty and the Chincoteague ponies, history, nature trails, and on the water. Now, with each one, we've done 3. We've done the oysters, the cuisine, the small town charm, which we did around Christmas time, and then Misty and the Ponies, which we just did. That was January. We did a press release, and we did an itinerary and a blog that went with each of those topics. So we tried to incorporate everything about each of those that we could think of in the press release and in the itineraries, and they have gone out to our media outlet list, and so we have gotten some very good response from those. And so we have the 3 left: the history, the nature trails, and then on the water will be closer to the summer, and that will end. That grant ends in June. So those will be, those topics will be coming up. And there's the link on the Chamber site to where you can find those self-guided tours and itineraries for each of those. The whole theme of the grant was road trips. So it was to encourage people are traveling by road trips, they're not flying, they're not going overseas. So bring them to small towns, rural, which is where they're coming. We all saw that last year when hotels were opened up, the people came. So I expect the same thing this year. Okay, the next slide is membership services and benefits, and those are some of the highlights of what the Chamber does offer. In 2020 we had 313 members with an 11-member board. We held our annual general membership meeting. We published the visitor's guide and membership directory, networking luncheons. We're still doing all of that. Professional seminars and training opportunities, we're still doing that. It's just looks different, but we're still doing it. Ribbon cuttings, we actually, I guess the last one that we had was the Shore Post parcel back in October. The Business Person and Citizen of the Year, we still did that. We'll be sending out the nomination forms with the letter about the general membership meeting for this year. Business after hours, not having too many of those right now because it's just not appropriate. And then these are some of the partners that we work with: the Eastern Shore Virginia Tourism Commission, the Virginia Tourism Corporation, Virginia Restaurant Lodging and Travel Association, Wallops Island Regional Alliance, the AMPDC, NASA, Eastern Shore Virginia Chamber, Northampton County Chamber, and of course the Wildlife Refuge and the Park Service, to name a few. Those are some of the partners that we work with on some of our programs and different things that we do. And our common goal, of course, is to strengthen that economic development aspect. All right, next slide. And 2021 glimpses. Our visitor's guide, those are the covers at the top there. That's the small cover and the large cover. As I said, it's going to print right now. The Wanderlove, that's one of the ads that Joanne put together on the right there, our business resiliency workshops. And we're working with the college to put together, we're kind of calling it tentatively a leadership conference. The Eastern Shore Tourism Commission is working with the college on a hospitality summit, is what they're calling it. And so we're working in conjunction with that. I think ours will be after theirs, and it will build on some of the principles and some of the things that are brought out in their conference. We will pick up and carry on with ours. So I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but you'll hear more about that. And speaking of the travel guide, I only have the one copy. Sorry, I forgot to print one for everybody. But we had some extra space in our travel guide on one of the pages, and we did a little thank you to Accomack County and to the town of Chincoteague for helping us so much last year. We greatly appreciate that. The last slide shows our little thank you page, that we are so appreciative of you all for supporting us, believing in us, and helping us every year not just in bad times, but every year. We appreciate it so much. So we just are happy to be here, and thank you all for everything. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evelyn.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All righty. On the agenda next, we have the committee reports, but we're going to dispense with them because we have covered that subject on our last workshop meeting. Barring anything that the council would like to bring up. Other than that, we have council comments. Ms. Ellen?
No, thanks.
Denise?
Yeah, just to reiterate what Jean Wayne said earlier, appreciate it if you keep Miss Ellen in your prayers. She's got a little bit of a hurdle to get over, but she's been as tough ever since I've known her. No doubt in my mind she's gonna jump this very gracefully, so you're in our prayers for sure. I want to say welcome aboard to Jay Savage. I have no doubt that he'll serve this council well. And that's about it. Thank you.
All right. That little message was to tell me that we need to adopt the minutes from our January 4th and January 21st meetings. Sorry, I jumped ahead.
So moved.
Any motion and second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Sorry for that little hiccup. Vice Mayor Bott?
I don't have anything at this time.
Billy?
Congratulations to Jay, and thanks to everyone that applied, and hope to see them out at the polls running at the next election.
Very much so.
Yeah. You win?
Congratulations, Jay, and may God continue to bless.
All righty. Well, I look forward to working with Brother Jay. Known him for a long time. Hopefully he'll fit in with us. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good night, y'all.
He's fine.